Welcome everyone to this meeting of the Finance and Resources Committee on Wednesday, 4th of February 2026. As you'll see, sitting at the top table, really as per usual, on my left is Scott Walker, Head of Finance. To my immediate left is Eric Drysdale, Councillor Drysdale, both as Vice Convener, but as also, as we're all aware, Council Leader. My good self, next to me, Kirsten Molly from Committee Services. Next to her, Scott Henry of Committee Services. And then on my right is Claire Mailer, our Deputy Chief Executive. So, you know the usual rules. What I'd like to first of all ask is of Kirsten if there are any apologies, any substitutions. Kirsten.
Thank you, Convener. We have an apology from Councillor Cuthbert with Councillor Lane substituting, and we have a few members joining us online this afternoon. So when I call out your name, could you please confirm you're present? Provost McDade.
Present.
Thank you. And Councillor Watt?
Present.
Thank you. All other members are present in the Chambers, Convener.
Kirsten, thank you. Right. Next, are there any declarations of interest? There being none, we now move on to the minutes, and there's 3 sets of minutes. The first is the minute of the last full meeting of Finance and Resources, and that was on the Wednesday 26th of November. Can we agree those minutes, and are there any specific matters arising? We all agreed? Fine. The next minute is of the Executive Subcommittee meeting on Finance and Resources on the I see Councillor Lane, you've got a question. Is it on this paper? Right. Okay, just to clarify. Right, this is from the Exec Subcommittee on hold a minute. Come to the minute. There we are. On Tuesday, the 16th of December last year. And can we have any questions? Grant.
Thanks, Convener. Several questions on the minute, and the first one is I'm wondering why that came a subcommittee 4 days after we had full council on a subject that we'd been known about for about a year that there was an issue. And I would like to know if there was any update we can get as the issue affects a lot more than just the waste contract. So it was just to see if there's any more detail we can give without going to, my question's going into detail of which was a private paper. Thank you.
Okay, it did have to be obviously taken in private because of commercial confidentiality. Yeah. However, to respond to your question, it was specifically the meeting was on the residual waste contract. I'm going to turn to both two people. One is Jeff Fogg. Lisa Simpson is not here today, but Jeff, if you could respond, and also Fraser Crofts, who I believe is online. Thank you. Jeff.
Thank you, Convener. My understanding is that the report was taken to the Executive Subcommittee of the Finance Resources Committee due to time pressures, time constraints, and that it was taken there because procurement and commissioning are matters which lie within the remit of that committee, as you'll be aware, Convener. I don't know if Fraser wants to add to that.
Fraser.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, I've got a short statement actually just to add to that. as everyone will be aware, this has been an extremely complex, actually quite fast moving and indeed a challenging situation for officers and our partner organisations to deal with in recent months, not least given the sensitivities around the matter and the need for us to maintain and respect commercial confidentiality. An update was provided to members from the exec sub-meeting of FNR on 16th of December on the 18th of December, advising of the background to the issues and indeed
Fraser,
the
we
key
can't hear
decisions.
you. I don't know what's happened. You just went dead. Could you
Can you hear me now?
start again? Yeah, it's not coming over.
Can you hear me now?
Fraser, we're trying to just get things sorted out because I think it's important to hear from yourself. So members of the committee, if you could bear with me. So
Apologies, that's strange. It sounds as though members can hear me online, but not in the chamber.
Fraser, we can hear online.
Can I check again? Can you hear me now? No.
Fraser, can you hear me when I'm speaking to you online? I know the chamber can't.
no, we're
Yeah.
not hearing yourself, Fraser, here in the chambers. But
Thomas, I can hear you.
Yeah, Fraser, and yeah, I was going to do so. Fraser, could you start again? Because we got about the first few sentences. So I think start from the beginning, okay?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, excellent. Okay, I'll go back to the start. So, as I was saying, this has been an extremely complex and fast-moving and indeed challenging situation for officers and our partner organisations to deal with in recent months, and not least given the sensitivities around the matter and the need for us to maintain and indeed respect commercial confidentiality. An update to members from the exec sub-meeting of FNR on 16th of December was issued on the 18th of December, advising of the background to the issue and the key decisions made. Importantly, information from the Scottish Government on their legal and enforcement position on the landfill bioban was not confirmed until late November, requiring us to make an urgent decision on how best to proceed to ensure we remain compliant with the ban from the 1st of January 2026. After approval of the approach at exec sub of FNR on the 16th, there were still significant challenges in the sequencing of events to ensure we terminated the existing contract with Patrick Bin and had a new emergency contract in place with Fife-based Serco, literally within one day of each other, to comply with legal and contractual obligations and the bioban itself. I really would like to thank a number of colleagues for their hard work and effort in concluding this. Pete Leonard, Annie Nettleton, Hazel Anderson and Jeff Fogg, along with support from our external legal advisors and indeed all contracting partners. As a result, there has been a smooth transition, both contractually and operationally, from one contract to the other, with working relationships being maintained throughout. We will shortly commence work around developing options for the provision of our longer term waste disposal arrangements, which will be explored and subject to a further paper to committee, hopefully before the summer recess. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thanks, Fraser, and thanks, Jeff. Councillor Lane Grant, do you have any follow-up?
Thanks for that, and I can understand it's been a difficult time. It's unfortunate it wasn't featured in the medium-term financial plan, which came out just, the papers for both were out at the same time. So it could have featured there. And I think because of, and it could have been taken in private at full council, I hope that it continues and we get the update in June. Will that update also look at the ancillary benefits that would have been if the contract had been fulfilled that we won't now have? That's my question. Are we still working to provide what the original contract was going to do with the facility in Perth and Kinross?
I'm going to direct that to both Fraser and to Jeff. Jeff, you first.
Thank you, Convener. Councillor Lane, much more detail can be given by Fraser and by Pete Leonard, but I am quite confident that the ancillary matters to which you refer will be very much part of the wider issues that are being considered when the council looks to let a more long-term contract after the emergency one that we've entered into. But Fraser might want to expand on that.
Fraser.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I think you've just kind of answered the way that I would have done, to be honest. Obviously, we will look at every option available to us, including, you know, the how that might impact on the existing arrangements on site. I would stress, however, that the key purpose for us in all of this is ensuring that we have a contract that meets the requirements of Perth and Kinross in accordance with the legislative requirements. So in that respect, that will be our focus.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. I look forward to the update when it comes.
One other question, and that's from Provost McDade. Xander, and I think you want to direct your question to myself. Xander?
Yes, thank you, Convener. Yeah, I understand obviously that there will be some commercially sensitive information perhaps within the paper. However, there is obviously a very strong public interest as well, given we're talking about significant amounts of public money and a significant contract to the council. I want to ask yourself, as convener who oversaw the committee, whether there was discussion to consider whether parts of the paper could have been included in the public domain, so that both members of the public and indeed wider elected members were aware of the discussion ahead of it being discussed, because a lot of us only became aware of it after the fact when we received the elected member briefing note. So I want to understand your decision around the commercial sensitivity and the scope of that.
Thank you. I did have to listen to our legal team and in particular to Lisa Simpson. I think Fraser has explained, it was a very complicated and also fast-moving position. I was not myself aware of the overall position until the 3rd of November. We did have to move rapidly. I was keen that we could be as open as possible, but I think the very fact that we did have a briefing note out that gave quite a bit of information 2 days after the executive subcommittee. I think the other point, I think very important, is there will be a much more detailed paper on the long-term position to committee, and that should be by June, and looking at not just the short-term position, but the longer-term aspects in terms of our waste contract. I hope that assists.
Thank you, Convener. I think given that some of the information was able to be put out after the fact, would suggest that some of it could have been put out in advance, and I would request that in future that be reflected so that members in particular have advance sight of these and can basically speak to members of the committee about what might be coming up, because the fact there was a full council a week before there was an opportunity for all elected members potentially to have been aware of the situation and been involved in it, and it has significant implications for the council. So I would ask that in the future these things be reflected when those discussions are happening.
As I've stated, wherever possible, I want to be as open and transparent as feasible. I think if we tried to take part of it in public session and part in private, it could potentially, I would have thought, and my judgment could have been quite complicated and even messy. I think I did have to listen to our legal advice. I think that's important. We did want, certainly the briefing note, I do believe, gave quite a bit of information, and obviously there's going to be more to come in due course. But the other point is for members of the exec subcommittee, along with the actual meeting, there was a briefing session beforehand. So we did try to involve members of that subcommittee as much as possible and to give them as much information as is feasible. So that I take on board, your comments, and genuinely, wherever possible. And this is only actually the first meeting of the exec subcommittee held, I think, over 3 years. But given the circumstances, I believe that we did follow the right course of action. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Kirsten. Right, next, so can we agree that minutes? Okay. The other minute is of the Employees Joint Consultative Committee. That's held back in Wednesday, 17th of September. It's got a lengthy minute. There's got a lot of information in it, but it is, as you know, primarily for noting. But do we have any questions on that? The next to move on is on the outstanding business statement. Do we have any comments there? Councillor Lane.
Thanks, Convener. It's a question. I don't know if it's able to be fulfilled or not. Some elected members will watch the committees going forward, and if a question's asked and it's not answered, which is fair enough, it goes on to the OBS. But the OBS statements are then emailed to, or the responses are only emailed to the members of the committee. So my request is that all OBSs are sent to all elected members, whether they're on the committee or not. And then that way, everybody's who watches online and can't ask a question can read the OBS. I'm just wondering if that's possible.
My own view is I can't see any difficulties with that, and it's something I would approve of. I think it's going to increase probably slightly the email that all elected members get, because I don't think we're just talking about finance and resources, but the outstanding business statements for all the various service committees. But I'm in accord and quite happy to agree with what you're proposing. Okay.
Thanks, Convener. And it was really, if Democratic Services, I know it will not be that much extra work for them because we just have to add, and all elected members, if they don't want to read it, have got a delete button, which I'm sure some of us use quite often, but it's given the option. Thank you. Thanks for taking that on board.
I have a point of clarity on that matter, please.
Right. Before we, I don't think there's anything further on the outstanding business statement. Point of clarity, Councillor McKeon. I'm not seeing that on my system.
So I didn't put it on my computer because I was trying to do it quickly. With regards to Councillor Lane's question and your reply, which I've no issues with, obviously, But councillors who are not on a committee don't have access to the committee papers. So that would have to be corrected as well. There's no point getting an answer to a question if you've actually not got the paper that it refers to. So I can't see, through this my CMIS, I can't access the Education Committee's papers from this morning. So me getting a reply from a question means absolutely nothing to me. That's my point of clarity.
Could I ask committee services, Scott Henry, Scott?
Thanks, convener. My understanding in relation to Councillor Lane's request is that if there's any follow-up email communication to members of the committee on a request or an action from a previous committee meeting, it's that all elected members would be sent that email. So that wouldn't be an issue in terms of that.
And my point is that members who are not on that committee will not know where the question comes from because they won't have read or seen or have access to the paper. That I'm talking about through my CMIS. I'm not talking about people dancing around trying to find papers in the public domain. I'm talking about on our systems where our papers come to us. We don't have access to these papers unless you're on the committee. Like if you sub on a committee, Democratic Services have to send you the papers themselves so you can access them.
Scott, you want to follow up?
If just the only papers that wouldn't be available to all elected members, and indeed the wider public, would be those that had been taken in private. So all papers for all committees should be available for all members to access. I think what you're referring to, Councillor McEwen, is the CMIS app that you use in terms of accessing papers. So we're happy to have a look at that and make sure that the technology works around whatever members are looking for.
Because otherwise it is an email deluge for no reason.
Okay, can I leave that with committee services? But actually, I don't think it's too difficult a change to implement. It will increase the emails that elected members do get, but as Bailey McLaren states, committee papers can be accessed fully on the Perth and Kinross website. That's just not a problem. You just look under the relevant committee. So yeah, you can backtrack and so on, get what the outstanding business statement item refers to. So it shouldn't be that difficult. Right. I should state that on the executive subcommittee paper on finance and resources on the residual waste contract, that Provost McDade did wish to record his dissent as he felt and feels the wider elected members should have been made aware in advance. So that will indeed be recorded. Okay, I think we now move on to point of clarification.
Yeah, I agreed with his statement online, and I wish my dissent to be recorded as well.
Okay, it will. But I do stress we try to involve members of that exec subcommittee as much as possible, and I did endeavour for us to be as open and transparent as I believe we possibly could. But your dissent's recorded, as is that of Provost McDade. Now, and Provost McDade's comment on the standing business statement, again, I think that can be something that is covered by committee services and that they can look in at and at the practicalities. Right. Now move on to the first of the two main reports today, and that is on the 25-26 revenue budget. It's the third update and monitoring report, and to speak to the paper and to introduce it, I call on Scott Walker as Chief Financial. Scott.
Thank you, Convener, and good afternoon, councillors. I'm pleased to introduce Revenue Monitor Report number 3 for the 25-26 financial year. The report provides an updated assessment of the Council's financial position based on the November 25 ledger, incorporating all significant movements for both the General Fund and the Housing Revenue Account. I'd like to begin by drawing members' attention to the headline position set out at paragraph 1.2. Our latest projections show a net projected underspend of £2.234 million, which is equivalent to 0.4% of the revised management budget. This represents a positive movement of almost £2.6 million since my last update. This improvement reflects continued close financial management across services, reductions in staff cost projections, and additional income received across several service areas. As ever, I do need to stress that these projections are based on just 8 months of financial data, and they will change. The committee will get one further update on projections in April, and it will be my intention, as we did last year, to bring back the final outturns in June. At a strategic lead level, in the main, we see favourable movements. In education and learning, there is an increase in the projected underspend of £784,000, largely driven by updated staff forecasts across nursery, secondary and special sectors. This section also includes an update on the devolved school management scheme and the pupil equity fund, both of which are projecting underspends of £100,000, which, subject to confirmation, will be carried forward to next financial year. In children, families and justice, the projected underspend has reduced by £115,000 due to an increase in the number of external placements. Across economy, development and planning, we are now reporting additional slippage and income, resulting in an increase in the projected underspend of £207,000. Across environment and infrastructure, the projected overspend has reduced by £250,000 due to updated staff cost projections. This is partially offset by additional waste disposal costs. Across property, the projected underspend has increased by £366,000, which is a combination of updated staff costs, energy and school meal projections. In customer and digital services, the projected underspend has increased by £568,000 due to updated staff cost projections. In strategic planning, people and performance, there is an increase in the projected underspend of £350,000, which is a consequence of additional grant income and updated staff cost projections. And finally, in finance and business support, there's an increase in the projected underspend of £115,000 due to additional slippage. At paragraph 4.22, I highlight that the impact of the severe weather experienced over recent weeks is still being assessed. Members should be aware that this remains a live financial risk, and with almost 3 months of costs still to come through the system, this may impact on our final outturn. The report also includes the latest information that we have on the financial implications of the Scott Street fire. The projected cost of the Council's response has reduced to £2.6 million, and we've now received £1 million from the Scottish Government. Work remains ongoing between loss adjusters and with Council officers. The latest projected net overspend of £4.414 million on social care is consistent with the last update to committee, and this is likely to feature in the 26-27 budget submissions. Members will recall that the Council agreed in October to provide up to £4.180 million of additional support in the current year, and this remains reflected in the reserves position. In terms of council tax and non-domestic rates collection levels, the information in the report is to the 31st of December. At that point, council tax collection was slightly below the 5-year average and previous year, but only marginally so. And non-domestic rates collection was performing above last year's level. However, since the report was published, I can now update committee with the collection levels to the end of January. Council tax and non-domestic rates collection levels to the 31st of January are now both sitting at 90%. Both of these collection levels are ahead of last year's positions. This is extremely positive, and I'd like to record my thanks to Lynn Brady and the whole of the local taxes team. The report also sets out a number of budget adjustments since the last update, including £1.352 million of additional revenue support grant from the Scottish Government and £1.687 million of other grant income. These adjustments ensure our management budget remains aligned with operational requirements. In addition, environments are proposed to support the planned use of the capital fund and to reflect movements across services. Turning to reserves, at paragraph 5.15 and appendix 7, approval is sought for the carry forward of resources to ensure delivery of council approved projects. And at paragraph 5.25, I highlight the continued proactive treasury management, which has provided a non-recurring increase in our general fund reserves of £1.6 million. I'd also like to highlight what the latest monitoring has done to our reserves position. Following the early repayment of long-dated PWLB loans in November and the positive movement in the monitoring position, the The level of unearmarked reserves is now projected to be £16.786 million, equivalent to 3.3% of budgeted net expenditure. This remains within the approved range of 2 to 4% and is an important part of the Council's financial resilience as we move into budget setting and longer-term financial planning. Convener, the report also identifies a range of financial risks, both current and emerging. These include weather-related impacts, demand-driven pressures, and inflation risks, which, while manageable in year, will continue to be of concern for 26-27 and beyond. A summary of those risks is provided in Appendix 8 and will continue to be closely monitored. In closing, the report reflects a stable and improving in-year position, underpinned by strong financial discipline across services. It also captures the steps being taken to ensure that resources remain aligned to Council priorities and operational requirements. As I said at the start of my remarks, I'm pleased to now be reporting a projected underspend to the committee. I had previously assured the committee that officers across the Council would be putting in place measures to address the projected overspends reported previously, and that the impact would be reflected in future updates. We're now seeing the impact of these measures across the Council. Given the pressures on staff and the challenges facing Council services, this is both welcome and impressive. So I'd like to finish by placing on record my thanks to all staff across all Council services for their efforts to date in improving the Council's financial projections and the measures that they will continue to take. Colleagues and I are happy to take questions. Thank you.
Scott, thank you very much, and for all you've done and your team have done. But we're going to take questions. The first is from Bailey Ahern. Chris.
Thank you, and thank you, Scott, for the report. My question is based on the table on paragraph 4.23, which is parking and civil contingencies, and it's noted down there there's an overspend of 94,000. Is that due to combining parking and civil contingencies? Parking used to be pretty much self-funding, but now it's combined. Is that still going to be the case, or is there going to be any budget put across to that team now, because it probably won't cover the civil contingency side?
Scott. Elaine Ritchie. It's not showing you.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Bailey Ahern, for your question. The overspend relates to the delivery of our visitor management service, which we previously reported in FNR2. Members might remember this benefited from non-recurring funding, but no budget provision was provided in 24-25, and we absorbed the service as part of the new service between the community support and enforcement team. Unfortunately, although we envisaged that we'd be able to absorb it without any financial impact, we didn't foresee wildfires this year and rising expectations from some community members and higher costs with waste clearances and toilets. So that's resulted in the budget overspend. The team are currently working to devise a model how we could deliver visitor management going forward, particularly in the summer months this year. But it's no impact as a result of the consolidation. It was just that we didn't get budget funding for it.
Thank you for that. But moving forward, parking used to be pretty much self-funding, but now you've got the bigger team, and it's including what you've just discussed there. Are we looking at budgets now for that team?
No, the parking account is ring fenced. We have to be really careful what we're spending the parking account on. There's legislation that we have to follow. We've merged the team, but it still comes with general fund. We're just using our resources much more effectively in terms of how we're targeting the priorities within the service.
Thank you.
I know next is Councillor Allen, but I think Councillor Elaine Grant, you've got a question specific to the response given by Elaine.
Yes, thanks. I just want to clarify that there was no ask of elected members for funding in the last budget for the visitor management team. So this, just the way the question came, the answer came across as though there was no funding provided by elected members. There was no ask from the officers for funding that was going to be fully provided with. I just want to clarify that.
Okay, I take that as a point of clarification, really. Elaine?
Yeah, that's correct. Apologies if that came across. What we didn't foresee was the increase in pressure in terms of wildfires and other increased pressures. We thought we could consolidate and absorb it within the function of that team based on previous years, but we didn't foresee the impact of the resources required to tackle and respond to wildfires, and also some increased expectations within the communities that we're serving.
Okay. Right, next question is from Councillor Allen. Keith, I think you clearly have more than, if it's two separate questions, I'll take your second question later. Okay.
That's fine,
Keith.
thank you. Thank you, convener. Thanks, Scott, for the report as well. It's nice to see that we're heading towards a positive place. At 4.3 on page 24, there's a suggestion that IT and customer services, there's an increase in the projected underspend of £574,000. And that's put down as being due to updated staff cost projections, which have been impacted by delays in recruitment. £574,000 seems like a rather large figure for IT and customer services. Can you expand on that, please?
I'm going to direct that question to Alan Taylor. Alan? Well, you want to go first, Scott?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. So there was money put in the budget last year, particularly around about AI. There was delays in getting the people in post. It took Alan and his colleagues time to get up to speed. There's also been turnover in that area. We've also been proactively managing our workforce because of the overspends we've been reporting. So I've been encouraging all strategic leads to slow recruitment down, etc. Alan has had some vacancies, and that's why that's coming through now. So we've been proactively managing our workforce in order to deliver underspends, get back into as you say, a more positive position.
Could I just say, I noticed Stephen Watts online as well, so I'll let him come in and then come back to yourself, Keith, okay?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Just expanding on what Scott has already stated there, we have undertaken quite an extensive restructure of the service during 25-26, and that's basically to create the foundations to future-proof the IT service, make improvements and modernise, but it resulted in staff being going into new roles and their roles being backfilled. So we've had 14 new staff, so there's been a high staff turnaround, quite an exceptional one in 25-26, which has contributed to that within the IT field. There's also been difficulties and delays in recruiting to IT posts, just in terms of the skills pool that's available to us. So that's on the IT side of things. And on the customer service side of things, it's really, again, been quite an exceptional year for a turnover of staff. We've had 6 leavers today, and we've also had a number of maternity cover posts that have contributed to that. So it's just a accumulation of that, really, that explains that abnormal underspend. Hopefully that clarifies things.
Steve, thanks. Keith, do you want to follow up on that specific question?
Thank you both for the responses there. Just in looking at that number, it's a high number. I just hope that all of our services are being carried out properly. Thank you.
I think you have another question. We'll come back to that later. Next question I'm going to take is from Councillor Illingworth. David.
Right, thank you, convener. Mr. Walker, you say in the report that there's a £28 million repayment of the Public Works Loan Board. Where's £28 million come from, and what are the advantages of doing this?
Scott, and I think John Jennings may come in.
Okay, so here comes with the technical answer. Basically, we undertake a loans review. We keep an eye on our loans review all the time. What we did is we identified some historic debt that we were paying a higher interest rate on. So what we do is we approach the PWB and say we want to repay that debt because we can get the money cheaper. What they do is they say, thank you, we can give you a discount because they can then lend it on after we repay it at a higher rate. So they offer us a discount. So in effect, we repaid £26 million worth of old debt and refinanced that with £28 million, but it only cost us £26 million, and we were able to apply the £2 million towards our reserves. I hope that explains it.
I hope that's clear, and I certainly did wonder at first, but I think that's, does clarify matters. Next question is from Councillor Massey. Ian.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you for the report, Scott. My question is on property services. They show an underspend of 996,000 on energy. Has this been driven by reduced consumption, lower tariffs, or an over budgeting? And also, can we bank on any of these savings for future years, or are they purely one-off?
John Beveridge.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Matheson. So to answer the question, basically we set a 3-year budget for our energy consumption, and at that time the rates which were set were significantly higher than what we are actually achieving now. Alongside that, we have also reduced consumption, and we've done that in a number of ways. Firstly, by proactive energy management, but also we have benefited from the milder weather as well. In terms of going forward, we will be doing a lot closer monitoring in year, and we'll be looking to actually project more what our budget is going to be. And I think your follow-up question was using it as a saving. These costs are basically redirected to other frontline services, and Scott Walker might want to come in a bit further on that.
Yeah, so just to add, all strategic leads have been asked to look at their current year position and identify any recurring areas that could be put forward as part of the budget. So I can't go into detail in terms of what our private budget papers right now, but I can give the committee assurance that we are going through this document and others to see what we can bring forward on a recurring basis in order to support future year budgets.
Next question, John Rebbick, Councillor Rebbick.
Thanks, Convener. It's Appendix 2. It's references an overspend children, families and justice of £739,000, projected overspend on residential placements. I am wondering whether our intensive support provision expansion has the potential capacity to reduce or eradicate that overspend by keeping children in their communities with their peers, siblings, family, etc., as we quite rightly should.
Arden Singh.
Thank you, Convener. In reference to the residential placements, now they are monitored on a fortnightly basis by our service managers, who are ensuring that the child's plans are being adhered to. Where we get drift on occasions from the plan is where we struggle to find community supports that can support those young people leaving residential care back into the communities. So what we do is we look to provide those wraparound supports for those young people. But invariably what happens is that a projected date, for example, the end of January, can sometimes stretch into the end of April, just depending on the resources that are available. So it's not necessarily a case of additional family supports in the community that are required. Is actually the transition between residential and the community, which I said is monitored regularly by our services.
Thanks, Alan. Okay. Next question is from Bailey McLaren. Claire.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, my question, is observation. As much as we are enjoying looking at underspends, broadly speaking, but going back to an earlier comment about the services, the one that I would like to understand better is the economy development planning 4.14, an underspend circa 260,000. That's that's not an insignificant amount of money. So my concern here is, are we still able to provide an efficient service for that area of our business?
Sarge Morone. Okay, right.
Okay, thank you. So if I could direct you to Appendix 2, which gives a more information on that £260,000 projection. You'll see within there's various elements contribute to it. An element is staff slippage, as you do quite rightly remark, but the biggest element is income that's coming through the system in terms of planning and building standards applications. And again, going back to the earlier question, that's the type of thing that we're looking to extend going forward to support budget. So this majority of it is income that's contributing towards that overall position.
Thank you. That's positive. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Stewart, Colin.
Thanks, convener. My question's about the 4.22, the significant activity due to reacting to severe weather events, including snow, ice and rain. When we're talking about the snow and ice, and I think there was mention somewhere else of response to flooding as well, we're normally talking about the increase in the amount of gritting that's needing done. So my question, which I foreshadowed last week in our BRG session, is what about the reactive amount of roads maintenance that needs done, given the potholes appearing on particularly our rural roads, but actually some of the main trunk roads as well, over the due to the water as well as to the ice.
Okay, and we have 8 weeks to go until the end of our financial year. I'm going to turn to Fraser Crofts here. Fraser.
Thank you, convener. Yeah, a fair point, a fair question. Just for a little bit of context, to the end of January, we'd incurred costs of around about 3.85 million. Now that includes standing charges of 1.5 million and unscheduled vehicle and plant maintenance costs of around about £750,000. So we're running at the moment with a level of budget left of about £500,000 to the end of the financial year, which is around 9 or 10 weeks away. Interestingly, the costs associated with treatment are more significant when we're dealing with gritting and snow clearance rather than they are directly with dealing with floods. But clearly, as being stated, the impact of these weather events on our roads and footways, etc., is significant. So what you will see actually within the environment infrastructure analysis here is that we are struggling in terms of trying to keep those costs under control in terms of dealing with the reactive maintenance side of things. So we are doing the best we can with the resources that we have, and in addition we are looking to provide updates, as we have done, to the asset management work and the asset management briefings with elected members, also to consider any additional requirements through the capital programme, which in turn obviously would help to manage some of that impact. Thank you.
Colin? Okay. The next question is Councillor Lane. Grant.
Thanks, convener. Said provost, as somebody else called you provost earlier in the meeting, but it's 4.20. It's waste disposal. So it says it's due to increases in both the volume of waste and gate fees. So my questions are, I'll roll them all up into the one question: is the increase in volume due to the increased number of houses that are being built, or is it due to a fall in recycling rates? And the £100,000 rise, is that attributable to the change of contract? Because we'll have had a month of that now. And if you could get a figure of what the gate fees were, say, per tonne previously and what they are now, so we can see what the quantum of change is. Thanks.
Going to go back to Fraser Crofts. Fraser.
Thank you, convener. Yes, so just to put it in context, the waste disposal budget in total, I think, is in excess of £6 million. So a 100k shift equates to around about 1.5%. But in terms of the detail, I don't have the detail behind the split there or between volume of waste and the gate fees. But Councillor Lane, I would expect that you're right around about household numbers. Obviously, we set the budget at the start of the year based on our best estimates on the volume of waste coming through and indeed how that is being treated, whether it's a recyclable or otherwise. So I would expect that to be the case. And in terms of the gate fees, we can get back to you on that if that's okay.
Yeah, that would be interesting, Fraser. Thanks for that. It was just I was wanting to check that our recycling rates weren't falling, because that's a double-edged sword. It means that we get less income from the recyclates, and also we pay more for gate fees. So I know that people of Perth and Kinross have been extremely good at recycling, and it's really helped us have funding to spend in our revenue. And I think we should all thank them and wish them to continue to recycle at the rates that they've been doing before. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. And Fraser, I'm sure you can provide a bit more in the way of analysis on this front, and that, I think that'd be helpful to members. Can I now turn to, for the first question, to Councillor Duff. John.
Thank you, convener. My question's in paragraph 4.7 on page 21. And it's a reference to the situation in the primary sector, but it goes on to talk about the reduction in the projected costs associated with sickness absence. And I just wondered, where are we in terms of the current rate of sickness absence, and is it improving, or is it? I presume it's improving, but if you could let us know what the situation is, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's David McCluskey.
Yeah, thanks. So we're really pleased to report an improvement in that picture, Councillor. So, for example, if we were looking at the figures for teacher absence, which excludes the figures during school holidays, which is a reportable figure, that's sat at 9.1 working days lost per FTE back in the end of March 2024. And that's now been reduced to 7.04 working days per FTE as at 31st of December last year, so 2025. So that's been a significant improvement over time. Between the two academic sessions, 23-24 and 24-25, I think that comes out at something around about 1,300 days in total. So that's been really helpful.
Okay. And also, first question, Councillor Shires, Caroline.
Thank you, convener. My question is 5.20 on page 32, and it's the Health and Social Care Partnership and the Digital Enabled Transcription Tool. Is there any indication of any potential cash savings that can be made by that, or is it really about the productivity and the quality of documentation? And also, is that then something that can be rolled out in other service areas?
Okay, I think here, Jackie Pepper or Donna. Right.
Okay. Yeah. So we did get an update from our colleagues in Health and Social Care. This is the rollout of a smaller trial to sort of scale it up a little bit. Initially, it is about productivity. It is about staff wellbeing. It's to deal with the unmet need out there, the waiting lists, etc. So we hope that it will generate savings, but we can't see that as yet. We also hope that it can be rolled out. We're also looking at internal solutions. Obviously, the council has invested in IT across the Microsoft suite. So we're looking at whether there's something we can do across the wider council with the existing IT stuff that we have.
Caroline? Okay, second question from, I think we've gone through all the first questions. Councillor Allen, Keith.
Thank you, convener.
Scott, I think you maybe updated this figure, but it suggests the actual collection rate for non-domestic rates was 83%, and that's in comparison to 81. There's possibly a new figure, but on the question anyway, I'm going to say, due to the recent revaluation on non-domestic rates, the next financial year has pushed up costs significantly for some large number of properties. So have we calculated the likely impact on the collection rate for 2026-27, which will presumably likely lead to a poorer collection rate? Thank you.
Scott? Okay, Kevin Fraser.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, for non-domestic rates, we are aware that the revaluation has put the value of a lot of properties up quite significantly, and there's always a risk of reduced collection with any rise in charges. However, it doesn't always necessarily follow. What we have so far is just the draft rateable values, but to counter that, we do have a reduction in rate poundages across the board, and we're also aware that there will be new and existing schemes rolled into the new year. For example, there's a new retail, leisure and hospitality relief scheme being introduced. There's also quite significant transitional arrangements being introduced to limit the increases for the largest increases. In addition to this, existing reliefs such as the small business bonus will be rolled over to protect a vast amount of properties, even with a significant rise. In terms of the concerns about the increase, we will continue to do our best to make sure everybody is aware of the rates reliefs available to them. We will give them guidance to help them appeal that rateable value if they think it's incorrect, and we will look at things like awarding arrangements, etc., where people are in a financial difficulty paying. Probably too early to tell the immediate impact at this stage until we get all these kind of pieces in place, but we do continue to monitor our collection levels on a monthly basis and investigate any differences, and if there's anything that comes to light, we will obviously do that investigation and report our findings to all concerned and take the appropriate action. Hope that gives you some reassurances, but happy to provide more detail once we get the legislation finalised and we can actually do a better sort of comparison of the increases in charges.
Kevin, thank you very much. I thought that was a very comprehensive response, and we'll say a bit more on collection rates in just a minute. I'm going to take us, I think it will be the last question, and that's from Bailey Ahern. Chris.
Thank you. I've actually got two questions in there. Yeah, my question's on paragraph 5.1, the revenue support grants. What is a grant of 5,000 for single-use vapes about?
Elaine?
Thank you, Bailey Ahern, for your question. There's new legislation, the Environmental Protection Single-Use Vapes Act coming into force, and the £5,000 gives us as a local authority some monies in order to undertake staff training and increase our storage and disposal facilities for vapes. That's what it's there for, due to new legislation.
Thank you. At least we're not providing vapes. And can I ask my last question? My last question is with regards to the Scott Street fire, and I know there's no information there about costs and that we're still reduced the cost to 2.6 million, but are we aware that are any of the costs that we've spent out not insurable, which will then mean it's a demand on the council's funding?
Scott, I think.
So we are working with loss adjusters. We have advised them of interim costs. They are working. Our loss adjusters are working with residents' loss adjusters. I don't think it's appropriate for me to go into detail on individual cases. I'm happy to speak to you afterwards if that would be useful.
I wasn't after individual cases. It was just that, are you aware that there's anything we is not covered by the insurance that we're going to have to spend out on? If it's to do with individual flats, I'm not after that. It was just whether there's anything we've spent that will be end up as a cost to the council but not covered by insurance.
So we are aware of underinsurance. I think that's a term I've used here before, where the costs of the individual claims are in excess of the sums insured. We are aware of a number of individuals who will be in that. What we don't know is what the insurance industry's response to that will be, because sometimes in big incidents like this, the other insurers make up the difference. We're not at that stage yet. That's why we're engaging with our loss adjuster who understands all that sort of that world, and we'll bring further reports back.
Thank you.
Okay, it hadn't shown on my system, it is now. And we've got two further second questions. First of all, from Councillor Colin Stewart, and then from Councillor Lane Colin.
Thanks. I've actually got two. Sorry, but they're on very different subjects. So at 5:15, authorities being sought to adjust the following earmarked reserves, and there's £58,000 of costs, IT costs at Bertha Park. I was just wondering why we need £58,000 worth of IT costs in what's a relatively new part of the school estate.
I would have thought that's David McCluskey. Yes. On you go, David. David, we can't hear you.
Sorry, apologies. I'm having issues with button clicking here.
Can you go back to start? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So Bertha Park is a secondary school where we have one-to-one devices, and that's been part of the process at Bertha Park since its opening. So as part of the ongoing replacement of that programme there in terms of pupil iPads, there are ongoing costs to that aren't part of our estate in terms of the rest of the learning estate. However, there is a new digital strategy being created through the education and learning team to articulate with the corporate digital strategy as well, to look at the entirety of our digital estate moving forward.
Okay, thanks, David. And I think Claire Palmer wants to add to that. Claire.
Yeah, no, I think David's response should be sufficient. It's just about that one-to-one devices for this financial year. That's what that drawdown is for.
Okay, that suffices. And I'll take your second question, then I'll turn to Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much, convener. And my last question is on approval being sought to adjust the budgets for project at 5.18 for projects and programmes and strategic planning, people and performance for a total of £331,000. This reflects a rephasing of transformation and change activity, but it looks to me like it's not a rephasing forward, but a rephasing back, because the contribution is to reserves rather than being drawn down from reserves. I would have thought that, given the circumstances of the council, that we should be accelerating that transformation and change activity rather than pushing it back. And I just wondered why it's a pushing back rather than a bringing forward. Right.
Scott, I think first.
Yeah, I'll start. So it is a pushing back. We're not spending the money in the current year. It's within the projects and programmes and the strategic plan and people performance budgets in the current year. It's not required in the current year. There's been some slippage in some of the projects. But what we're doing here is we're protecting it for the future. It will go back into that reserve and be brought back in 26, 27, so we can carry on with the approved transformation works and hopefully accelerate some of the big projects you're alluding to.
Yeah, I think what I'm getting at is why are we allowing slippage in projects to bring about the transformation and change that we need in order to be able to deliver council services as efficiently as possible?
So a couple of things. I don't think we're allowing. We put the budgets are all applied into that area in the current year. What's probably not been reflected is the phasing of the expenditure. So, for example, if there was a 2-year post approved, the money was probably applied for 2 years in the current year, and now we need to draw it forward. So it's around about the timing of expenditure as opposed to delays.
Thanks, Colin. And final question is, unless, is Councillor Lane Grant.
Thanks, convener. Unfortunately, the councillor, I'm trying to remember what it was. Councillor Hearn stole my question. Really, could you let him have a second question? That's terrible. No, I'm only joking. I'll sort of rephrase it because it was on the Scott Street fire. So it's good news. It's down to 2.6 million, and it's really good news about how it's progressed. So that's good. We've spent 1.3 million, and so that means that there's another 1.3 million outstanding. It's again about the phasing of this. While the negotiations are going on, obviously invoices will have to be paid because it's moving on. The council will be paying these at the moment, I take it. Are we taking that from reserves? So at some point, we could be £1.3 million out of reserves waiting for money to come back in. Is that a correct understanding?
I think, yes, Scott.
Yeah. So in effect, we have spent, I think, 1.6, I think is what we say in the report. We've recovered £1 million that has been physically received. So we are, as of today, £600,000 down. Is it apologies, 1.3. So we're £300,000 down. We are working with the loss adjusters about raising invoices. What I will do towards the end is take a view as to how recoverable that monies will be, and we will take in debtors as appropriate, advised by the loss adjusters, etc. But there is a risk that some of that is not recoverable, and if that is the case, that will impact on the council's reserves.
Thanks, Scott. So will you be able to have, it's very difficult, but I'm just saying we'll get an updated version in the fourth paper at the end of the financial year?
Yeah, I mean, we've reported on this every report that's been since the tragic fire. It will be part of the next update because that'll be outturns. There are still demolition costs invoices to come in. They're the big element of it. So once we get that, we'll have a bit more certainty. The next report, I think, is the end of April. So hopefully we'll have a bit more information from the loss adjusters. There are a number that has been agreed. There is still bits that are being worked out. So it's going to be a slow burn, but I will be keeping the committee up to date each time until it is resolved one way or the other.
Thanks.
Okay,
I just have a quick follow-up.
There is a question from yourself, Billy Hearn. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I put an A in there instead of a Q. I wasn't going to answer anything. Just to follow on from there, the public realm that was damaged and needs repairing, is that insurable? Is that covered by the fire?
When you say the public realm, do you mean the footpaths and the roads?
Traffic lights, everything else that was damaged as a result primarily of the fire and the construction vehicles being there.
So there are two main elements that the insurers are accepting of. It's the demolition costs of the actual building, and there is the traffic management costs because they are significant, and the public realm. So that's part of the reason we've not finished yet, because Tayside contracts are only now getting into actually repair the roads, etc. That's one of the major pieces of expenditure that's still to be incurred. But that is part of the discussions with the insurers about that they will be having a share of.
Okay. Billy Hearn, I took the indication earlier you didn't have another question, but you clearly did. And it's a matter in which, we will keep members of this committee and elected members constantly up to date. And I think it may take, it's quite a bit to go on this yet. Right, I'm going to move this paper. It's the third revenue monitoring report for the 25-26 financial year. And once again, Scott's given us a very detailed commentary on the contents of the report. I certainly want at the very start to welcome the update on the projections. And if you take it on the November ledger, we're now projecting an underspend for the current year, projecting of just over 2.234 million. I think that's an extremely positive development. It's a very positive position to be in, given despite all the various constraints we have. I really do want to thank staff right across the council for all they've done to help turn things round. The position obviously will be kept under review, and obviously our projections will change once again as we move through the rest of this financial year. In the update, we also received formal notice of the 1 million of additional financial support the council received from the Scottish Government, and I understand that payment was received in December. Also very much welcome the update on our council tax on non-domestic rates collection performance, and I didn't anticipate we would actually have the figures for the end of January, and I think that demonstrates just how efficient our teams are on this front. And we are, despite the economic problems that exist, I think it's a huge credit to staff that on both council tax and on domestic rates, we are ahead of the position we were a year ago, and I think that's really commendable. Normally, I don't comment on the housing revenue account, but I do welcome the prudent approach being proposed by officers, with an increase in the level of unearmarked reserves to 1.2 million, and that will maintain our position of between 2 to 4%. The report also sets out an improved unearmarked general fund reserves position, and with the budget coming up, that's going to be something obviously members want to consider. We've shown the proactive treasury management that we've undertaken, and that's given an injection to our level of unearmarked reserves. Also, I think it's worth commenting our prudent approach on the application of unearmarked reserves means that, unlike some other councils where innovative proposals have come forward, we're in a fortunate position to support them. And two such ideas are set out. Number one is the extension to the transcription project in social care. And that's something I've heard about previously through Scotland Excel. But that should streamline our processes, enhance the quality of our data, and also improve staff well-being. And I think that is a transformative move. I really do want to hear more about this going forward, and also how that can be applied perhaps to other council services. Secondly, is the proposal to create 30 paid roles for school leavers in the summer, and I think that's a very good initiative. It could be of huge benefit to both individual young people and the council as a whole. Finally, but I'm going to move this paper, but before I do so, I'm going to ask Councillor Drysdale to second the contents of the paper and also to comment on the reserves position. So I move the paper. Councillor Eric.
Thank you, convener. The first thing I would like to do is to echo something that Councillor Lang said earlier about the recycling rates that the residents of Perth and Kinross are helping us to achieve. Thank you so much for that. It's a spectacular success, and hopefully we can get better at it, even better still in the years ahead. But thank you to everyone for their contribution to that. It does help us. But more generally, between the turnaround in our projections and the proactive treasury management, the fact that we have been able to add an additional 4.6 million to our unearmarked reserves, which are now at 3.3%, is really good. Really pleased with that. And this improved position can provide all elected members with some additional non-recurring capacity for next year's budget. Councillors, I've always been confident that with this council's reputation for sound financial management, we would, working collaboratively, do our very best to weather this not just financial storm, but also the storms that we have faced, and we've heard about the impact of that on our severe weather budgets, etc. The proof of that sound financial management is in this report. Therefore, I'd like to end once again by recording my thanks to the Chief Executive and the staff across the whole of the Council for their continued efforts. And I look forward to receiving further updates throughout the course of this financial year. And finally, I would also like to pay thanks to colleagues from the Council and partner organisations for their response to the weather incidents that appear to have been non-stop since the start of this year. The support provided to communities has quite simply been first class. So thank you again, and I'm happy to second the paper.
Thank you, Eric. Right, before we move on to comments, I'm conscious on time, about up to 2:20. Would members prefer a 5-10 minute break at the end of this paper, or do you just want to crack on and we'll cover the capital paper as well? Well, 5-10 minute break. Okay. Right. We'll take comments. And first is Councillor Duff. John.
Thank you, Convener. I'll try and keep it as short as I can. Just wanted to say that thank officers for the report. It's good to see that we are very much on track in terms of the budget, and that we have just a slight underspent of 0.1%. So there's obviously, from the contents of the paper, a lot of work ongoing across the council to try and keep our spending on track, and I'm grateful for that. It was a couple of things I just wanted to pull out in relation to the response by David McCluskey. It was interesting to note how much management of sickness absence can improve your budget position, and hopefully that is something that we can look at across the council and try and reduce our sickness absence rate, because it obviously does have a very positive effect on our budgetary position. And also to thank the officers for the prudent restructuring of the £28 million of Public Works Loan Board loans, which has resulted in I think £1.6 million being returned to our reserves, which are now looking a lot more healthily at 3.3% than they were probably at the last meeting, I think I remember correctly. So I think in these challenging times, it's comforting to note how well our finances are being managed, and I'd like to finish by thanking Scott and his team and all the staff across the council for their efforts in trying to keep our budget on track. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Councillor Lane Grant.
Thanks, and I'd just like to agree with the Vice Convener's comments about the good work that our workforce and other workforce has done in the weather events, but I'd also like to extend it to the people within the resilience communities who have undertaken the work to help their neighbours and do everything. And I think that we can't miss them out. They're a very important part of the whole PKC community looking after each other. So I just wanted to add that to his comments. I think this is a good report. I think it will be the only good news that we will be looking forward to the next few months. So we best make the most of it just now, and a lot of that goes down to the good work of our finance team and other leaders of teams throughout the organisation. I'm very happy to see that we're putting more money back into the capital budget. I think that's really good news. And when you add it together with the commitment we gave to people that they would put 1.25% of their council tax in, it puts our capital budget in a really, really strong position moving forward. It was interesting, it was mentioned twice by Councillor Stewart and by Mr. Cross about the state of our roads, etc., and the state they're in. So I think with this extra funding going into capital projects, it'll be up to budget review groups to decide where they want to spend it. But I would certainly think that because of the weather effects we're facing with roads being flooded, etc., and towns cut off as well as potholes, but there may be an avenue to spend some of this extra capital we've got, funding we've got on projects like that. But that'll be up to budget review groups. Thanks.
Dan, thank you. And I've got one further comment, and that's from Councillor McEwen. Tommy.
Thank you very much, Convener. I'd like to mirror the response from other councillors congratulating our roads teams and, as Councillor Ryan said, the resilience groups within our communities that have responded to the recent bad weather. Blairgowrie was nearly shut off a few weeks ago. I had to go back home from Ninewells via Dunkeld, which did allow me to go to the coffee shop and get some cakes and sausage rolls for the family, which was good in itself. But that was a 2-hour journey from Ninewells back home again because all other roads were closed because of the Isle of flooding. The work that was done at the Cargill Old Railway Bridge to get that road back open was exceptional. There's a huge pile of mud at the side of the road that's obviously come off farmers' fields with the constant rain that we've had. 200% of our annual rainfall in January is something not to be taken lightly. Also with that, the freezing level is about 200 metres at the moment, so the snow on the A93 from the Spittal of Glenshee up to the ski resort is something we put a lot of resources into clearing. Although not directly a priority for this council to allow people to go skiing in itself, I think the huge demand and benefit that has to the communities and the businesses both within Strathardola and Glenshee, down to Rattray and Blairgowrie, out to the rest of East Perthshire. The businesses at this time of year rely on the business that comes from people wanting to do snow sports and go to these areas, and reliably keeping this road open, especially in strong easterly winds, is not the easiest thing in the world. And I think that it was obvious from Facebook posts from the ski resort that they had worked closely with both Aberdeenshire councils and ourselves, working together with KIT to get the road cleared and get open. And that takes a power of work, especially when you have frustrated skiers who've already purchased a lift ticket sitting at the Spittal waiting for you to open the gates. So thank you very much for all that work under these what are extreme conditions, and looking at the forecast going forward, it isn't going to change in the short term.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor McEwen. Right, I can't see any further requests for comments. So, and I do think this is a very positive report. I'd also echo my thanks to council workers for the what Councillor Drysdale and Councillor Ling was saying in terms of the response we've seen over the last recent days and weeks to the bad weather conditions. But what I do simply want to ask is, can members of this committee agree this report, both the various adjustments that have been put forward and the contents? Are we agreed? Okay, as I said, we're going to break for 10 minutes. I don't want to be longer because there's quite a lot of other business in another place, another respect later this afternoon. So if you could be back for 25 to 3. Thanks. Okay, folks, we'll recommence. It's 25 to 3. So what I do think also we want to do here is there's another meeting for quite a number of you at 3:30, and that's going to go on for quite a while. So I don't want to, I want to give as much time as possible here, but let's see. Okay, we now move on to the capital monitoring report and also the housing investment programme report for 25 to 2030. And can I ask Scott Walker once again to speak to the report, and the authors of the report are John Jennings and James Salisbury. Scott, can I ask you to present the report?
Thank you, Convener. I'm pleased to present this update on both the composite capital budget and the housing investment programme. The purpose of this report is to provide a summary of our capital position to date, seek approval for several adjustments, and ensure that our capital investment plans remain robust, deliverable, and aligned with the Council's strategic priorities. The report covers the latest position on capital resources and expenditure, progress on major projects, adjustments to both the composite capital budget and housing investment programme, and an overview of our financial risks and mitigation. The total gross capital resources available to the Council through to 3031 for the composite capital budget are now estimated at just under £562 million. This has increased slightly since my last update, and the reasons for the movement are set out in the tables on page 54 of your pack. The increase is primarily around additional external grants and third-party contributions. In the table of paragraph 4.8, I summarise the proposed rephasings from 25-26 into future years. Net capital expenditure to 31st December stands at just under £61 million, representing 53% of the revised budget for the year. The projected outturn for 25-26 is just over £115 million. This reflects the latest projections and all proposed adjustments. There are some significant rephasings, and I'll pick these up in my comments about individual service areas. In environment and in infrastructure, there are several adjustments that I want to bring to your attention. Following the receipt of additional funding, we're looking to rephase the budget for works on the traffic and road network. Based on the programme of works, we're proposing to rephase £904,000 of structural maintenance into 26-27. Because of the higher river levels, we also need to rephase £965,000 for the Bridge of Tilt works into 26-27. The table at paragraph 5.2.5 sets out a number of adjustments to the flooding programme. The most significant adjustment relates to the Comrie scheme. However, this relates to slight slippage on the programme and the contingency budget, and the project is still due for completion later this year. Turning to the prudential borrowing programme, the table at 5.2.5 includes some proposed adjustments, including the rephasing of expenditure on the vehicle replacement programme due to delays in procurement. Across economy, development and planning, the most significant adjustment is in relation to the Perth Eco Innovation Park. Expenditure to date has been limited to design work, and therefore approval is sought to carry forward the balance of £7.931 million to 26-27. And in property services, the table at 5.5.2 sets out several proposed adjustments. The most significant relate to Medland Primary School, Perth High School and the Drummond Arms. The balance of unallocated resources sits at just under £11 million over the 6-year programme, after the application of £324,000 towards licensing costs. The unallocated resources provide flexibility and capacity to allow the Council to respond to emerging needs and risks. Projected expenditure on the housing investment programme remains unchanged at £89 million over 5 years. The buyback programme continues at pace, with 102 properties purchased in the financial year to date, with a further 13 under offer. At paragraph 6.6, I include an update on the Double Dykes Chalet replacement programme. For the reasons set out within the report, the cost of this project have risen by £1.684 million, which will be funded by bringing forward resources from future years. The risk section is unchanged in this update. We continue to monitor and mitigate these risks through detailed monitoring, prudent management of unallocated funds, and ongoing review of project delivery. In summary, this report demonstrates the Council's commitment to delivering the capital investment programme. The adjustments proposed today ensure that our capital plans remain deliverable, responsive and aligned with our strategic objectives. And again, I'd like to thank colleagues involved in the preparation and delivery of these projects and programmes. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
So again, thank you, Scott. Do we have any questions? And the first question is from Councillor Keith Allen. Keith.
Thank you, convener, and thank you again, Scott. At 5.1.1, you've got a chart there, and it talks about being 3/4 of the way through the year. Would we normally be expected just to be at 53% of projected outturn? And is there a particular reason why the housing and community outturn is low at 26, which I appreciate is probably the main reason that 53% figure is there? Thank you.
Scott, you first.
Yeah, so I'll start, and perhaps Lane Ritchie can come in behind me in terms of the specifics. It's probably fair to say we are slightly behind where we were in previous years. We really turned the corner in recent years in getting the capital money spent. However, there's probably 2 or 3 big ticket items that are causing that. Comrie is one big event, and that's simply because of a slight delay, a matter of 2 or 3 weeks. Means we're needing to move £5 million across the years. The other big one is the Perth Eco Innovation Park, just under £8 million that we're moving back forward. So that's £13 million worth of movement that's impacting on that, and that would have if those were happening, that would have a big material impact on that 53%. So there's 2 or 3 big ticket items in the comms one. I'm going to hand over to Lane now, hopefully, just to talk through some of the housing and communities specifics.
Thanks, Scott. So in terms of from housing communities, the main 2 projects that's bringing that down is our Gypsy Traveller Transient site. So we've had a wee bit of delay there just because we got security regarding the actual site. So that delayed it because we had to go back out to the Gypsy Traveller community and consult because we changed sites and we want to make sure we get it right. And the other bit is through our community green space in terms of our play parks, just a wee bit of a slow pace there. But they're the main reasons for a bit of a turn down from December. We'd spent 1.5 million out of a £6 million budget, but they're the 2 main projects that's bringing that down.
Thank you, Elaine. Keith, you okay? Right, next question is from Councillor Massey. Ian.
Thank you, convener. I'm on section 571, and it's with the 10.98 million in unallocated capital resources. And given our priority to reduce inequality, cut long-term costs through energy efficiency and invest in communities, can officers set out how this headroom will be prioritised, particularly towards projects that deliver the greatest social return, reduce ongoing revenue pressures and attract external match funding so we can maximise long-term value for residents?
Scott.
So just to be clear, this is capital resources. So it needs to go towards capital spend. So assets of ours or other people's. But that is built into our borrowing assumption. So that capacity is there if any of the projects that meet the aspirations of the comments you made, it's available to be drawn down. This is probably the first time we've drawn it down when we've applied it to some of the licensing costs. But we established it, I think, about a year ago, just in order to create a bit of capacity for the any shocks that come through the capital budget. We've already made capacity for that borrowing. So if there was an overspending, something coming forward, that's there. We wouldn't need to go out and do any additional borrowing because we've already done that. But it is also there if there are any proposals coming forward that the committee want to support or the council want to support.
Okay. Next question is Councillor Lane Grant.
Thanks, convener. It's about capital receipts disposals on vehicles. It's on page 59, and it was just to get a bit of information on how we actually dispose of old vehicles. It's saying that there's just it's under £250,000 that we're not going to be able to realise for them. Obviously, the council decided a different way of disposing minibuses, which has been beneficial for many communities and is well thought out. And that's councillors brought that forward to change the way that it had been done in the past. So I was just wondering, what's the balance of vehicles we buy? I can understand buying heavy plant and leasing the vans, etc., and the trucks. So the question that I'm asking is, how do we dispose of the ones we've got? Is it still through auction, or is there another means? And why are we almost £250,000 under what we're estimated to bring in from the older vehicles, and going to have to sort of write that off?
Thanks, Grant. And on minibuses, I know you played a very significant role on that front and what we did there. But however, to answer the question, can I ask Fraser Crofts? Fraser.
Thank you, Convener. Maybe just to pick up on the £226,000 first. For some time now, projected disposal receipts have been set at 10% of the purchase price of all of our vehicles, and that's really for accounting purposes, and that's excuse me, based on our historical experience of sale receipts. Actual receipts will vary from year to year, and that will depend on vehicle type, condition, and market prices at the time of disposal. From the narrative in the table in section 5.26, my understanding here is that the 226k referred to is a projected shortfall that has accumulated over a number of years. So it's not just about something we're not achieving now. And effectively, that's now just requiring adjustment to more accurately reflect our anticipated disposal receipts. You picked up on the point there about the minibuses, and that's been a hugely successful initiative. That's had a little bit of an impact obviously for us as well, though anticipated receipts of around about 40k, so that's part of the 226. And really just supposed to put that number into context, over the 6-year approved replacement programme, that's around 22 million. So again, the 226 is about 1% of that. In terms of the balance, the vast majority of our procurement is through outright purchase. We do have some sort of smaller, more specialised equipment that will be on leasing agreements, full leasing and maintenance agreements, but that tends to be in the minority. And finally, in terms of disposal, and I think, Councillor Lee, this question was actually asked at the recent asset management briefing regarding how we handle disposal. So I picked that up with the fleet manager and pretty much got a sort of position on that, which I'm happy to share. But pretty much every local authority uses auction houses to dispose of their assets. There are obvious benefits for us in that, in terms of their market expertise. There are obviously issues around about liability if we were to be selling our own vehicles. They actually have access to the open market, and the public have the opportunity to go and bid for vehicles, and that can be across the country. So from our fleet manager's perspective, we can demonstrate that we are indeed providing best value in terms of our disposal processes. The last thing I would just say on that is that I suppose in terms of our fleet team, our core purpose and our key focus is on managing the fleet and making sure that that's procured and serviced and maintained and operated effectively. We don't really have the capacity or the time or even necessarily the skills to be selling on vehicles. Thank you.
Okay, Grant.
Okay, thanks.
Then
So
I'll turn to Councillor Massey.
if we, as elected members, want to change the strategy, we would need more information. It'd be interesting if we could see what we are actually receiving for a type of vehicle and comparing it what the market value of that vehicle is on other sites of selling it, and then we can make a decision as we did with the minibuses if we want to change the strategy of disposal. So I don't know if that information could be. Well, I'd certainly like to see it, but I don't know if anybody, if elected members would like to see that when they're moving forward, or if it is possible, because I think it's strategic rather than operational.
Fraser.
Well, if we could just come back in, as I say, the
Fraser, can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Apologies. Can you hear me now? Have I gone silent again? Am I back on? Yes.
Yes, you
Sorry, thank you. Yes, I was just going to say the market prices are part of what the fleet management team are dealing with through the auction houses. We can certainly look to try and provide some additional information if that would be of value, just so that can be made available to elected members.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councillor Massey, because you've got a point of clarification.
Yeah, it's just to say that it was myself that asked that question at the meeting, and I received a comprehensive answer from Nigel Taylor detailing the market experience, reliability, wider buyer reach. I'm happy to share that with anyone that wants the answer I got from Nigel.
Ian, thanks. Okay, and that, I think that would assist. Councillor Lane Grant.
So if we have a briefing session and a question's asked, it's again is the same as here. Why is that not shared with everybody every elected member? Why is it sent to one elected member who asks a question? Are we going to, moving forward, have individual briefing sessions with one elected member so they can get their question answered? Or are we going to have group briefing sessions as we do that everybody can get an answer? Convener, I'll ask you, or maybe ask the Deputy Chief Executive if that would be a better way forward of sharing time, etc.
My understanding was the briefing session was for all elected members, but
yeah, exactly. But the answer's only going to the person who asked the question.
Convener, could I come in?
Fraser, on you go.
Yeah, sorry, and apologies, that's an oversight on our part. We will make sure that that's made available to all elected members.
Claire.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Lane. We will get a reminder out across all managers when we're in a briefing session. If there are questions that are asked, the answers, and we have picked this up before, so apologies about that, and we will do.
Thanks. If it can be reinforced across it, because everybody turns up to briefing sessions, and I think it's only correct that everybody gets an answer.
Okay, I think also we've answered your point earlier about outstanding business statements, and that will proceed, and there will be changes on that front. Now I'm going to the next question is Councillor Duff, John.
Thank you, Convener. My question is on 5.2.4 on page 57. There's a table there with some structure information about bridges and viaducts, etc. It's a bit of a parochial question from a ward. There's an entry there for Bridge of Tilt at the bottom, and the funding being slipped back into the next financial year. I'm aware that there are scour problems there to, I think, one of the piers on the bridge there. I'm just concerned that we will tackle this at the earliest opportunity that the river allows us to do this. And I hope that there wouldn't be any further delay in tackling this work if we can do. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate your question, and I'm going to ask if he's online, Derek Davidson, to respond.
Yep, thank you, Convener. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Just to confirm, yes, that is the intention, to get the works on site at the earliest opportunity, notwithstanding CEPA's constraints with regards to the salmon spawning season, which are critical to adhere to, but also allowing for the river levels. The Tilt is probably one of the most volatile rivers that we have within Perth and Ross. I'm sure you're aware. We are, however, very much monitoring the situation over the winter. We have interim measures in place to safeguard the piers in question, and we've increased our inspection frequency, etc., over the winter to make sure that all actions are being taken to safeguard the structure.
Yeah, on you go.
Thanks, Derek, and thanks for the monitoring activity your team are doing in relation to the bridge. Just in relation to your comment there about SEPA restrictions, is there currently then a SEPA restriction on the river, and when would that be lifted and allow us to get in and do the work?
Currently, there is a standard restriction with regard to working in rivers that have salmonids that spawn in that area, and that's a standard restriction applied to all works in rivers, not just to the specific location. So it's if there was emergency works that we needed to go in to do, I'm sure we could get around that particular situation if we needed to with SEPA. But of course, we need to monitor the situation closely with regard to water levels. The type of works that we're looking to do are not insignificant. What we're looking to do is to implement a scour mitigation scheme, which is quite a lot of work within the water itself, and we need to divert water to do that. Accordingly, we really need the lower water levels, which will come about towards the end of the salmon spawning season, which I think is around May time. So May, June is our anticipated start date for the works recommencing. But if we can get in before, or if we need to get in before, we won't hold back from doing so.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Right, at the moment, and I'm conscious of time, but we've got two questions left. One from Councillor Colin Stewart, Colin, and then Keith Allen. I think, Keith, you wanted to... Oh, it's Bailey Ahern, sorry. Right, I'll take Colin. Have I missed? Oh, yes. All right, no. I'll take Colin Stewart first, and then Bailey Ahern, and then Keith Allen. Okay.
Thanks, Convener. I think this is probably a question for Mr. Croft. In terms of the slippage in the structural maintenance programme for the Roads Maintenance Partnership, I just wondered whether any of these works were impacted by the additional monies coming in from the Scottish Government. So, you know, we've got the active travel grant, the £1 million that had been received with an expenditure deadline of 31st of March. I wondered whether extra monies coming in that needed to be spent doing structural type things meant a delay to our own structural maintenance programmes on the road.
Fraser.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, I think, to be honest, it's a combination of things. We talked previously about the impact of the severe weather, and obviously that has a direct impact on colleagues in the Roads Maintenance Partnership being able to get on with the sort of routine and capital nature of our roads investment. But you're correct in that the funding that's come in recently, both around the Road Safety Improvement Fund and the Tier 2 Active Travel Grant funding, will have an impact in terms of their workload, not least because the funding conditions and restrictions set there to have the spend by the end of March. So I think it's a combination of factors. The other thing I would say is we did get through the vast majority of the additional budget motion funding that came in at the start of the year. So the balance of 900k there will simply move forward to next year.
Bailey Ahern.
Thank you. My question is on paragraph 5.54, which on the face of it seems a bit backwards. It says the office moves associated with Puller House are now complete and the project has now moved to the construction phase. Does that mean we're going to have construction and have to move people in Puller House to carry out construction? And what construction is getting carried out?
I think John Beveridge. John.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Ahern. So, yeah, I suppose you could look at it like that as a bit backwards in a sense. However, we did have to make some moves initially to get staff relocated. The construction works that are underway at the moment are accessibility works, which are happening on the first floor. So they are substantially complete, which looks at just ensuring that staff can move from the ground floor up to the first floor and have access to the tea making facilities, disabled toilets and a disabled shower. There will be future construction works to undertake as we move in some of our external partners. Now that work it is significant and it needs careful planning. So we are in the planning stage of that at the moment. You will be aware, obviously, one of those partners that we're looking at is obviously Scottish Government, and we are still in close communication with them to secure a date for them coming in. So that's the phase that we are at. The works will take some time, but they do have to be carefully planned and sequenced.
Thanks, John. Chris?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good answer, but when you look at it on the face of it, you carry out the construction before you move somebody in, but I think that's pretty much explained it.
Thanks. And I'm going to take as the final question, the second question from Councillor Alan Keith.
Thank you, Convener. You'll be pleased to know that my question was asked by Councillor Stewart. However, I would like to ask if you're going to have trouble spending that £530,000 and that £1 million on road safety and active travel. I've got some fabulous projects in Ward 7 I can help you with. Thank you.
Thank you for that observation. We've now got I'm going to take a final question from Councillor Lee. Grant.
As your convener, I thought you'd ask a question that you would have done if you were sitting at this side. It's about the Crieff to Comrie pathway that's coming in, the extra funding that's come from it. I was just wondering how that's progressing.
I'm going to get a council officer to respond on that, but I have been quite involved with the group. Andy, you're there, right? Can you respond? There was a meeting of a steering group quite recently.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you, Councillor Lang. Hope you can hear me. Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
So yes, we're making reasonable progress on the Crieff Comrie railway line. It's based on funding that we've received from Walking, Wheeling and Cycling Trust. I think they're called now, formerly Sustrans, who are a partner in this with us, and they're currently funding the main design stages. So there was quite a delay to getting that funding confirmed this year. It was only about October that we heard, and then we were able to engage the engineers, who have now until the end of March to finish the sort of design work which is required for finalising the landowner agreements and, you know, progressing the design works towards tender packages. So we are making progress, but it's very much funding dependent, and obviously ultimately we'll need the landowner agreements, or we would have to go into a path order process, but we are hopeful that we will get those path agreements. And it was just maybe if I could clarify on the last question about the green space projects, they are actually all on track. We had about £300,000 worth of spend just prior to Christmas, their play area projects, and there's £700,000 worth of projects on the ground going on the ground at the moment that should be complete by the end of March. So that spend, it's just the time it takes to get the design done and the contracts awarded and the works on site is why there's a lag between the expenditure not being sort of relating to the timescale for the projects. So I hope that answers that one as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I was using that as an in as well for Bailey McLaren and myself to ask if we could hear how the progress is working on the Stanley to Lunkerty path, which I think is 12 years, and we were going to go for a compulsory purchase, then we pulled back. So I think both of us would like to know where we are with that one, please, as well, Andy.
Indeed.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Councillor Lang. Again, that was in a similar situation. It's a predominantly community funded project, and again, we had to apply for funding from the Active Travel Infrastructure Fund this year, and that wasn't confirmed until October, as I said previously. And unfortunately, because of that, there wasn't time for the consultants to be able to progress those designs effectively this year. So we're having to look at pushing that back another year and reapply. We've actually put applications in for funding for next year to try and progress that as well.
Thanks, but this was part of the Stanley Master Plan, which was passed through planning in, I think, 2013, that there would be a path and also a community hub in Stanley. None of these projects have been brought forward. It was meant to be part of the agreement was there'd be an officer who would help the communities, and that didn't happen either until very recently. So I don't see if it's part of with the developers that we're going to be funding part of that, why we're having to apply and there's no funding.
I don't know about the sort of bigger master plan or where that funding was coming from. All the, the only involvement we've had is to try and assist the community group and take it forward using the active travel fund. So I'm happy to have a look into that and see if I can clarify anything further on that.
I'd appreciate if you engage with our colleagues in the planning department because I think it's quite explicit.
Okay.
Okay, that's the last question. I hear what you say about Stanley Lunkerty Path. I could argue Comrie to it's the Trowen and ultimately hopefully onto Lady Mary's Walk in Crieff. Is it taking even longer? It is issues of funding, but certainly steering group is reasserting itself, and it really is an important project in terms of active travel in Strathern, and I can well understand with Stanley and Lunkerty. Right, I'm going to move this report. I'll be fairly brief. Again, Scott has given us, I think, a very comprehensive, detailed commentary on the capital monitoring report. And I think, as you can see, we've continued to make good progress with the delivery of the capital budget. Most of the budget adjustments within the paper are basically aligning resources with actual activity on the ground. And that happens every year. And once we get towards the end of the financial year, we get a clearer picture of what the likely final outturns are going to be. We do, however, need to rephase budgets to match updated activity. And Scott referred to, and I will, is the Common Flood Protection Scheme, which on a gross basis is one of our biggest capital projects. But I think it's really to reassure people that even though we're moving over 5 million into 26-27, that's basically because of a slippage of about 2 to 3 weeks across the end of the financial year. The likelihood is almost certain that the project will be completed by autumn of this year, at long last, and there's a good chance it'll still be completed by October. I hope there will be a member of the funds team at the next meeting of Comrie Community Council, which will be a week on Thursday. But I'm going to move this report, but before I do so, I'm going to hand over to Councillor Eric Drysdale to second the report. On the capital projects, there's a lot of detail on page 83 on Appendix 4. But Eric's also going to talk about the housing programme and basically what we're looking to do on that. So I move the report, Eric.
Thank you for moving the report, Convener. I would welcome add my appreciation of the update on the housing investment programme, particularly the update on the very successful Council House buyback programme. Today, 102 properties have been purchased with a further 13 under offer, which is significantly in excess of our target of 40. In summary, excellent progress is being made on the delivery of almost £562 million of investment across Perth and Kinross between now and 2030-31 on general fund services, and in addition, over 89 million of investment on the housing investment programme and our housing stock over the next 5 years also. So to that end, I would like to place on record my continued thanks to officers across the council for their efforts to ensure delivery of this capital programme, and in so doing, I'm happy to second the paper.
Thank you, Eric. And I concur entirely with your sentiments. Can I ask now, do we have any comments? I'm just logged out briefly of the system. None? There are no. Councillor Lee.
Sorry, Convener, computer's died. I'll be very brief, but I'd like to echo again the work done by our finance team, but also through the housing communities team, Elaine Ritchie, and that the performance of Perth and Kinross with and on the housing front is tremendous and innovative and been driven forward by the convener and all the members of that committee. And I think that's one of the standout things that Perth and Kinross can be rightly proud of just now, and hopefully we'll continue to be innovative and provide housing for all the residents of Perth and Kinross of a suitable standard.
Thanks, and again I entirely agree. Can members of this committee agree the report, the various recommendations, amendments, veerments and such like? Are we in agreement? Okay, then we will close the meeting